Hey, Coach. A tough loss. Obviously, you didn't have three of your three key guys in Porzingis, Jalen, or Zach. But when you look at this game, I guess in its totality, I know it got out of hand at a certain point, but to a certain point, you all were within one, I believe. How did you kind of like how the guys fought, kind of overall, despite the outcome?
Yeah, I told our group after the game, I think, when we cut it to four at halftime, and, I thought we did some good things adjusting at the beginning of the game when they were making some shots and overcame some, several missed opportunities, missed layups. We didn't finish well in the first half, but we were right there, and so we gotta feel, we gotta understand, and hang on to that. Um, the third quarter, I, you know, I don't know how many of the first six of the first eight, four of the first five, whatever possessions, that we just turned the ball over, and all of a sudden, a 4 point lead just jumps, and now you're looking at a double-digit lead again, and your margin for error, you know, given um, what we, some of the guys being out, and also more importantly, playing against a team of that caliber, and Shea didn't miss much. Holmgren came out, making threes. Thought we adjusted to some of that. Um, so there were a lot of things that you have to overcome, and you can't be yourself. And it wasn't any one guy. Everybody kind of got into it, um, and some of them were unforced. Some of them were good passes. The one in particular when Trey tried to throw the lob. There's not too many people in the league that make that play other than Chet Holmgren. But there are others that we just hand on the ball. And when we do that, we're not going to be able to score. But that said, we can focus on that, what we can't do to be successful, particularly against a team of this caliber. And then we also need to understand, how we did battle and get back into the game, and where we were at halftime with an opportunity.
I guess on a more positive note,
Mm-hmm.
you look at a guy like Asa who, 3 of 5 from three, and not just him taking those shots, but taking those shots confidently. What did you like out of him tonight?
Yeah, I think he's worked at that, and I think guys find him. And that corner three for a player that coming out of college hasn't taken a lot of threes. That's a good place to begin to build your confidence, and you can see that happening. I think as much as anything too, his instincts for the ball, are really good, and we had they're big, and those big guys, particularly if you have to double um, SGA or trap and pick and roll, you're in rotations, and it makes it harder to rebound. Um, so our ability to come up with some of those loose balls, like the turnovers, those things are impactful. And I thought Asa did a good job for us, not just making a shot, but as I said, his nose for the ball.
Coach Nikhil was fun to watch tonight, but
Mm-hmm.
when you watch him on the bench and just how he is in the huddles, he just seems to be so engaged, whether he's on the court or not, constantly coaching up guys like Ace and Noel. Can you describe what impact that has on the team right now? When you take a look at this stretch, night two of a back to back, about to go on a road,
Mm-hmm.
how important is that voice that he's offering right
Yeah,
now?
I think it's incredibly important, and that's something that, when he came here, that we knew, he could give us. Our team right now, that's one of the things we need to keep finding those things and start piecing them together as we get healthy. And that continuity is going to be accelerated with communication. I thought um, he's doing it on the bench. I thought Trey did a terrific job of that last night, just controlling the game on the floor with his voice. Telling people where they needed to be. Those are all things that I think over time, will help us, become a better team. And as I said, it's right now, we need to get healthy, and that once that happens, then there's still a ton of work to do. Um, but that type of perspective and that type of attitude and that communication kind of builds that connectivity, which is what you need to be a good team.
Coach, along the lines of health, how serious are the ankle injuries? to Ricochet and also to Johnson? And also, how much does the depth help you guys nowadays to kind of compensate for that?
Yeah, well, with respect to those guys being out, our medical staff, lets us know how they're doing in that regard, and they'll continue to report on that. When you do have players that are out, we mentioned Asa. There's other guys that then get an opportunity to play. I think we saw that with Mo. We've seen it with other guys. So that, those are the silver linings when you're missing guys. It's a tough hill to climb, and but again, having younger players have a chance to develop in competitive situations against the world champs, you can take from that, and that's really what I was saying in the beginning. Is I think we need to continue to grab the things that can help us get better, and certainly that was good to see those guys rise to the occasion when they had those opportunities.
Hey, Coach. Luke, I think after practice mentioned that you were encouraging him to get his three-point volume up very early, of course, 9 3-point attempts through 3 games. Seems like he's been used mainly off these handoffs and curling into the paint to facilitate. He's done a great job at that. What are your overall thoughts about his shot diet at this point and how you think
Yeah,
he may integrate?
I mean, we all want to get him more shots. The other team knows that he can shoot. So some of those shots we can try to generate set plays for him. They're going to switch and guard those. They don't help off him. So I think the thing about Luke is he's taking what the defense gives him. And again, as our team evolves, I think we saw more of it tonight. Guys driving the ball, having their eyes out. There was a lot of more connectivity with those things. I think that's where a lot of his shots are going to come. And he's actually one of the best people on our team at doing that. Just attacking closeouts. You go back and watch the film and you want him to shoot. And there's a lot of times he's not open, but he's driving a closeout and making a pass. And, over time, I think that if that continues to evolve and we get better and better at that, a lot of our guys will be doing that. And then he'll be on the back end of some of those, those rotational situations where he kicks it and then respaces and someone else drives. And again, that's why it's so important for us to run, because those opportunities are there in transition too. But in order to do that, we can't turn the ball over, and we got to, close possessions.
Mentioned the efficient night for Shea, and
I'm
pre-game.
sorry?
You mentioned the efficient night for Shea. I think he was 12 for 17.
Yeah.
But he had the 4 free throw attempts. I mean, how do you look overall? You spoke about the connection to the defense last night, but clearly a big assignment for Dyson. How do you look at the 30?
Yeah, I mean, we all know who Shea is as a player, and you'd like to just guard him, but when he's having the night that he's having and making contested shots, and some of those two came off. There was one possession where we got stops, we didn't get a rebound, got another stop, didn't get a rebound, and then he ends up with the 3. So we can't help him in that regard, but he's someone that you pick your poison. I mean, if you're guarding him and he's off a little bit more than he was tonight, you continue to guard him. What we were seeing a lot was when we weren't trapping him or double teaming him, he was scoring. So at that point, you make an adjustment and try to make someone else beat you. And I think, by and large, I think our team executed pretty well on that. They've seen everything. He's seen every coverage, whether they start using him as a screener on the ball. If you're doubling him when he's a handler, you put him in isolation and you don't play pick and roll. There's a lot of things that they're doing. And I think that's part of it for our team too, to understand, and execute, against an elite player like that. And, when you do that and you have success, you've got to come up with the ball. And so those are the ones I think as much as any, he's going to make his share. And if you double him, he's going to get off it. And other guys are going to, drive closeouts, and we got to keep playing. But when you do get a stop, coming up with the ball, because that gives us a chance to score on the other end. And that's what happened in the second quarter. We were able to get out and convert. And I thought overcame early we had a lot of shots at the rim that we didn't make. And those are again, it's similar to the turnovers and second chance points. We got to convert those in a game like tonight. Okay.